I had this free subscription from Gemini, and I thought, okay, let's maybe try it Gemini and see how it was doing. Surprisingly, it was doing a really really good job. So I think there are use cases which Gemini is also doing a good job at, but people have to go in and see and explore if it's actually fitting their use case.
Their primary customers, I would say, are developers. Obviously, the end customers use a bunch of products, but what they are trying to focus on is gaining the attention of developers.
Yeah. So, is there any one product or use case that caught your interest, Funny?
I feel like if an assistant can actually do all of those things for me, that's awesome because I can just say a word and then can figure out the details. But I think we are a little far from that.
One of the examples which they show was updating the address, right, when you move in all the different websites and all. That's also has something things like that. Hello everybody, welcome to our podcast Everything Product. So we talk about latest technology and product management concepts here. So we are back again with another tech review today. So we're going to talk about Google I/O, which happened last week. So in the previously we have reviewed a couple of Google I/O events, and we are also excited to review this event here. So we're going to share about our thoughts and first impressions about Google I/O, and also get into some of the products which they have launched, and compare it with some of its competitors like OpenAI and Claude. So let's maybe quickly get into that discussion. So Funny, what was your first impressions when you initially looked at Google I/O, and what were your thoughts around it?
Yeah, definitely, Sidhu. So taking back in time, right? I know we spoke about Google I/O last year as well. So taking back in time, last year was more of a catch-up game. Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, all of them did multiple events to talk about how their AI is advancing, what are the different models that they have been releasing. And Google tried to do a catch-up game in launching multiple products last year, even though they have had a history of AI built products with a large team focusing on it. But this year it came across as they're doing good. They have been focusing on the customer rather than trying to catch up with the other companies. And they also went with the typical product model, right? Rather than launching one, you have different variations for different use cases. And you are specifically now focused on developers, and I'll also call it as enterprise. They want to make sure like enterprises are using their models to solve problems. That's how I felt it. What did you think?
Yeah, I know. I felt that this was more like a reply to everybody who was criticizing Google. So remember last time when the Google I/O event happened, there were a lot of memes around the number of times Google used AI word, right? And in this last week's event, they actually counted it themselves, and they were like, "I know people are counting it, but we'll give you the number here, and this is actually counted by AI." So I think that captures the whole theme of the event, which is more like a response to everybody who was criticizing Google. And I thought this event was more like a they had a very firm grip around what they're doing around AI, and looks like they have established them as one of the prime competitors to OpenAI or anybody who's building AI tools. So I very promising for sure. A lot of new products, and a couple of things, right? I want to take it with a pinch of salt because I'm still skeptical on some of these things which they've developed, because I've seen that bad taste from some of the AI tools which they've developed. So they had this Bard initially, which was not that great in some of the tasks which I was doing, which OpenAI is really, really great at. And also, they integrated Bard into Google Sheets, email, and Word docs. Email was really helpful. It was helping me write emails and all of that stuff. But Google Sheets, Word, right? Whenever I ask it to do anything, it's basically saying that Bard is still learning. We cannot do anything with that, right? So it actually was not even responding to some example questions which they have given. So it was so bad initially in those phases. But this event looks like they have basically done a really good catch-up game, and are trying to reinvent everything again ground up, right? They're trying to reinvent search. They're also trying to reinvent collaboration of all their office tools with AI, and they have also introduced a lot of new foundational models. Plus they were talking about hardware. So maybe we can go into each of these and discuss more, but I felt that this kind of changed the narrative around Google and AI.
Actually, one more thing I want to add there, right? Like being a devil's advocate, I'm on the same page with you. So Bard was a good first launch, but it could never compete with any of the models in the market. Gemini, which is their revamped Bard, is supposed to do good. It can take like wide variety of tokens, give better responses. I feel what they did is they were very conservative when they launched Bard, but what they realized over a period of time is none of the others in the market are being conservative. So why do we have to do that? And I think Gemini came back that way. I'm also still skeptical about some of the things that they are promising in the video. For example, one of the things they were telling is you can go to your Google Photos and then search and say, "Hey, give me the number plate for your car." I tried to do it on my own. I don't know if they launched it yet or not. It didn't give me. I'm like, dude, what the hell?
One of my experiences funny. So I know there is a lot of bad press around these models not working as good as any other models, but I think I also sometimes think that first impression is your best impression, right? That's where people had this bad taste, and people still think that maybe even sometimes these models are good, might have that older experience in mind and not use Bard or Gemini. So surprisingly, one thing, right? So I had an experience where I was trying to transcribe some old notes which was written by my grandfather previously, and I was it's in a different language completely. So I tried doing that with OpenAI. Like I basically it was like a 30-page PDF where he wrote a lot of different things, and also I basically tried doing that through OpenAI. I didn't have any even had a thought of using Gemini, right? I tried it for a lot of times. It was not doing it properly, either doing it or it was actually creating new stories completely different and all of that stuff. So then I had this free subscription from Gemini, and I thought, okay, let's maybe try it Gemini and see how it was doing. Surprisingly, it was doing a really really good job. So I think there are use cases which Gemini is also doing a good job at, but people have to go in and see and explore if it's actually fitting their use case, right or not. So I think it's always good to keep Gemini also in mind when your actual model or go to model doesn't work for your use case.
Yeah, that's true. One last thing I want to add, right? Even last time when we spoke about, it's less about solving one use case. It's more about having a model that can solve for like multiple use case. I think that's what they came back this time. It could be video transcribing, it could be generating videos, or even generating videos and stuff. They have grown a lot. They have passed that phase of trying out something to having a model that actually starts to generate something. So yeah.
Yeah. And one other thing, I think, OpenAI started like an, single model, right? Modality. It was actually doing one modality at a time. And now I think they're moving into multi model. But looks like Gemini was built ground up multimodal where it can interface with text, image, and video. So maybe that will give it more capabilities while helping people with certain use cases.
Yep. Cool. Let's start. Let's go deep dive.
Yeah. So, is there any one product or use case that caught your interest, Funny?
Um, I mean, in general, Gemini caught my attention. I know they have been talking about like Astra and few other products in the video. The reason it caught my attention is the multiple variations that they were trying to give, because at the end of the day, if they're solving a use case, that's what is most useful. When they were talking about like Ultra Pro, I think they were also talking about some light versions on it. All of these I think made more sense to me, where each of them can be used by developers to solve some problems. What do you
That's right.
think?
Yeah. So I think that's a very interesting thing which you brought up, Funny. So I think what you're trying to do here is, so imagine you're a developer who is developing on a Gemini model, right? So if you have a 70 billion parameter model, it's actually costing you more to make that API calls and getting that information, right? But every use case might not need a 70 billion parameter model, right? So you might be good with a lesser trained model. So I think that's where Google is trying to have lighter models which can be used with lower cost efficiency. So imagine you have x tens of cost per call you're doing to an API. It might not be viable for a lot of products that are built on top of it, right? So but if you have a lesser model with lesser tokens, it'll actually help you get to that spot, right? So I think that's where Google is trying to have different models for different use cases.
I want to go back one more step, Sidhu. So when I think about Google, right, who are their primary customers? Their primary customers, I would say, are developers. Obviously, the end customers use a bunch of products, but what they are trying to focus on is gaining the attention of developers so that the developers can build a lot of products on top of it. And that's how Google grows, right? When you think about um, their voice assistants, this was what, 7 years ago, something
Mhm.
like that. What they basically did was, even though Amazon Alexa existed and has been ruling the market, they brought in Google and they made sure to launch in such a way that developers get attention. They launched some competition so that the developers build products on top of it, and that's how they became the industry leaders. I feel like they're following the same model here as well, where even though there are others existing in the market, they need developers to use their models to build top of it, and that's what they are trying to like push for in the last 6 months, and then they'll continue to do it in the next year or so.
Yeah, I think that's also a very important point, Funny. So, like when we look at Google and also OpenAI, right? So, what is the advantages of Google, right? Google has a lot more data because they are the search engine, right? So that's one of that. The second one is they have the distribution, which is they have users using like billions of users using Google search, like 2 billion, and even Gmail is like maybe 1 to 2 billion. The same thing with their products, right? Like Sheets and all of that stuff. So that's the second, which is distribution. And the third is they have a big developer ecosystem who are developing apps on Android and developing all of these additional apps on the ecosystem which they have and all of that. So I think this is like the center point of where they can create that differentiation compared to their competitors. As they give more and more these developer tools to developers, they can build more over the ecosystem which they have, right? So I think that's a clear advantage to Google on whatever they're trying to do here.
I want to ask you one question, Sidhu. So when I was like going through the video, right, they have been primarily talking about two things. Okay. One is multi-model and the other one is larger context, I believe. Larger context or longer context. I'm blanking
Longer.
out on the word.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you? Like, how do you think that makes a difference?
Yeah. So imagine, right? So I'm actually, I would be able to do more and more things the more context I have, right? So imagine, so I think OpenAI has like 300,000 tokens as of now. Previously, it was even lesser than that. So the context is the number of characters you put into that model and ask it a question. It's increasing over time. So if Google says 200 million tokens, I think they refer to an example where they are saying that it's equal to 1500 pages of PDF, or maybe using 150 menus of Cheesecake Factory, or 1 hour long video, right? So you're actually able to put in more and ask it for what you want, right? So imagine somebody, a student who is trying to do their homework, right? What they do is they can basically upload the whole textbook to Gemini and ask it, I want to learn certain concept. Can you help me do it? Or maybe can you help me put it in a way that a 5-year-old understands? Or can you help me put it in a context better to what I understand? Right? All of these things. So you don't have to maintain a database of all of these things, but you rather put everything together into one prompt and then ask it for results from that. So you have the ability to do more and more as you have more context, I feel. So there was also an example where looks like somebody was struggling to write a Python code. They actually uploaded the whole 30,000 lines of Python code library and then asked it to help in certain things. So that's like crazy amount of capability which you gain with just the context window there.
Yep. I was just looking at their website, right? So if you go to like deepmind.google, they are talking about all the different Gemini models, which is Ultra, Pro, Flash, and Nano. And each of them, they have been giving that context to say, hey, each of them they can take up to like 1.5 million tokens. They're also launching 2 million for individual customers. Individual developers. And they're also talking about how each of these models vary, like what is the speed of it. They have started to give an examples. Again, goes back to the principle of like gaining the attention from developers, and I think they have been really successful in the Google I/O this time. So we are content creators to a certain extent, okay, and we have been doing this for like almost 2 years now. So what do you think? We as content creators, we are not developers, we can't use the models as such, okay, or we might have to like sit and code to figure out some of these things. If you think about beyond developers context, okay, what any specific products that stood out to you that we can use?
For Google, you're saying?
Yeah, from the Google I/O, what do you think, like content people like us, like content creators, how do you think we can use the products? Like what any products stood out for you there?
Yeah, so I think couple of things funny. So I think Notebook LM was something which stood out even from the day it was launched for me, because I feel that when I'm actually doing a lot of research for some of the things which I write on my newsletter, I know it takes sometimes it takes a lot of time and effort to understand certain things and synthesize certain things, and also Notebook LM actually helps me upload everything where I'm researching about, and ask it questions regarding certain topics which you want to include. So imagine, so I'm writing, so I'll give you an example, right? So I was writing about growth hacking for this week's newsletter. So I wanted to understand what are the different types of hacking tips and all of that, and there were a lot of different books which I could refer, and also articles which I could refer. I've basically uploaded all of that, and I knew what the structure was. I wanted to have a structure of, I wanted to explain what growth hacking was, like why do product managers have to use hacking, what are some of the tips of growth hacking, and also some companies which used growth hacking to grow drastically and all of that. So I wanted to consolidate all of this, but this was in a lot of different places. So this actually helped me a lot of saved me a lot of time to basically put all of these things together and try to understand different examples and also add my flavor of thought process into it. So I think it's basically cutting down a lot of research which I'm trying to do through various website I'm trying to do and all of that. So that's one product which I would say I
Nice.
could recommend.
Nice, nice. One other thing that stood out for me is the media models. I mean, no, it's the same Gemini models probably, but it's the media tools that they have been giving. So I know we always face this problem, right? We want some intro music, we want some extra music, we want some transition musics and stuff. Feel like we have always been paying for some tools, or we are trying to utilize the basic music that's given in YouTube. If we can actually generate something on YouTube that is unique to us, and we don't have to like pay to another system, that's awesome. And even videos and stuff, right? I know we don't use it as dramatically, but a lot of people actually use video transitions and stuff and voice over videos, etc. For all of them, if YouTube can do it on their own, that's a dramatic change to content creation.
Yeah. uh, yeah, I think that's a very good point, Funny. Let us maybe talk about some of these things, right? So I think now Gemini is trying, they're doing audio, and like OpenAI Sora, they also have a video model which is doing video. Um, I think the most important thing here is some of these models are good, but not as good. The reason why I say it is I ask it or give it a prompt, it generates something for me. And I don't have the ability to change certain things in that video. So every time I give it a prompt, it's a new thing. I think that's what's stopping me from using some of these models. So if it generates something for me, I want to just change the text of certain portion of the picture, or maybe change a certain element or an object inside the picture, right? So that's what I'm not able to do. So if these models are able to do these things, that will be the next unlock for these models, because I won't be using maybe Canva or Adobe to edit some of my posters or even our thumbnails. I'll just use these models prompting and making it changes. And I think that's where, and I would say it's AI is a black box, right? You don't know what it's generating, even it doesn't know what it's generating. So I think that's something the industry has to figure out, and how can you change certain pieces of uh, that image or something like that. And the same thing applies to video, right? Okay, video would be good to prompt and play around with, but if you want to do movies with that, you have to change each and every element, right? So it's actually has to tie back to the director's vision or the story. So you can't just randomly generate stuff which is completely different from each frame. So I think that's where there needs to be more and more development that has to happen. I'm happy with
Got
what they
got
have, but I think there needs to be more and more improvements there. So funny, one other thing, right? I also want to talk about Google search and AI overuse. Like, I think that's something which we discussed in the previous videos, and we were saying that is AI a Google killer, because people will not be going to all of those pages, or not spending uh, more time on Google, because previously you used to scroll through a lot of different pages and used to be served ads, and that's how Google used to make revenue. But now it's more like you ask it a question, it give you a summary, and you'll understand it, and you'll not actually spend as much time as you would before on Google, and Google will have less ad revenue. But looks like what Google is saying in Google I/O is completely different. What they're saying is, with AI overviews and all, people are doing more searches. So essentially, previously when people used to do 10 searches and used to spend a lot of time in each search, they are now spending less time in the one search they're doing, but they're doing more searches, is what they're saying. So that's where they want to roll it out throughout the US for everybody. What are your thoughts on Google search and AI overview?
Yeah, that makes sense because I will give you my personal experience, right? So I was trying to find some specific details about a specific newspaper, I believe, like what is the readership and all of those details. When I tried to do that, it gave me an AI summary, which is awesome. I'm like, dude, this is exactly what I was looking for. But I wanted to make sure the data is right, so let me find the references. They gave the references there as well, which is awesome. But when I tried to go through the references, I couldn't access some of them, or that exact information is not available. So now I'm starting to question the relevance or the accuracy of the data. But the summary in itself is awesome because now I don't have to go through like 10 different links. My productivity is gonna go through roof because the information that I need is right then and there. And the more confidence that I get, I believe I'll do more searches, and that's what probably Google is proving right now.
Yeah, and also, like, maybe one other thing to add on what you're saying, you might not have the right information sometimes, right? And also, I think I was reading somewhere there is this problem where with AI, right? AI is being trained on the internet data, and compared to the data that's there out in the world, internet data is maybe 3%. So imagine there is a certain set of people, only certain set of people using internet, and or at least contributing to the internet. AI, all the LLMs and all the models are being just trained on that, not with all the other data that exists in the world. So definitely that's a problem which has to be solved too, right? So you have to get more and more information out from the world into the internet or whichever form, and train these models. Otherwise there'll be more and more biases of these models towards people who are just contributing some information to the internet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, I want to talk a little bit more about personalized assistants as well, Sidhu, because
Yeah.
I've always been fascinated about like having a personalized assistant where I can ask some questions and then can take actions. What do you think about that from the IO?
The the example or the something they demoed was very interesting. I didn't, but I don't know if it actually works in real time. So they are saying, okay, you can buy as many shoes as possible because your agent will take care of returning them, right? You ask it to return, it will basically fill out the form, schedule the return, and take care of all of that. But I think Google had some of these previously, right? Where I think they had a feature long back, a year before, they introduced in one of the iOS, which they were saying, if you want to reserve a table, you can ask Google, and Google automatically will call them, make a reservation, and set it for you. It's useless. You can actually do it through a set.
They backed out of that.
That's right. They backdoored it. You can actually do it through a tap of a finger through Open Table, right? So you have everything already built in. But I think the concept of agents is very, very powerful, right? So if you are uh, able to have agents which are multimodal and also trying to help you in a lot of different chores which you do on a daily basis, that is the concept is very powerful. But I think we are not there yet. I'll be very happy to see some of these work, so that it can reduce the amount of toil we have in our regular day lives, yeah, returning certain things.
Yeah, I agree because
And I think one of the examples which they show was updating the address, right, when you move in all the different websites and all. That's also hassle, something things like that, yeah.
I loved actually both the examples. So when I think about the return use case, right, the scale of that is pretty huge because millions of people doing that on a daily basis. But I feel like they restricted themselves to a Google Shopping because that's what they can actually control by themselves. But people who are using Google Shopping to do a lot of this is way lesser. I feel like after some time they are going to kill that Google Shopping product if it doesn't scale. But in general, once these use cases become bigger, developers build products for, like, let's say Amazon or Etsy or eBay or any of these things, then the scale of that is going to be pretty huge. Even the
That's
other
right.
one, right, where you can get the updates, like you can um get the updates of the restaurants, etc., etc. I feel like if an assistant can actually do all of those things for me, that's awesome because I can just say a word and then can figure out the details. But I think we are a little far from that. Yeah.
And I'm also thinking that in the future there will be one personal agent which will actually take work from you and delegate that to more customized agents, right? So maybe there'll be a return agent, there'll be a hotel reservation agent, or there'll be a maybe a trip planning agent, or a finance, like home finance assistant, right? So this personal assistant, you go in and maybe ask it for whatever you want. Maybe can you pay the electric bill, which is maybe automated, or maybe can you return certain things and all, and it'll actually go in and delegate this to all of these things. It'll figure out which agent to give it, and it actually, that agent helps you do all of these chores and all. And I think each of these agents will have a subscription fee of per month which we have to pay, and there, I guess.
No, that's actually a good thing because when I think about e-signatures or when I think about some of the document filling capabilities and stuff, I'm sure like decades ago this would have been like a tedious process. Even I could think of like home buying process also, right? Right now the real estate agents charge a lot because of all the tedious work that they'll have to do. If there are any products that can solve for that, they'll also start charging less, which in a scale is a lot of money saved for a lot of people.
Yeah.
One other thing that stood out for me, Sidhu, is Circle. They were talking about like people can just circle on things and then search about the products and get more details about that, right? Um, I feel like this is still, I don't know, they're still claiming a lot of things that can happen, but I'll be surprised in a real world if it can happen on this. For example, right, last time when they introduced Google Photos, I still remember that video where a kid was holding balloons on a bench and they easily told that you can remove all the things, move things, etc. But in real life, when you try some of that, it's not working as well. The circle is an interesting thing where you can find things easily on image search, but I don't know. I feel like they promised a lot. What do you think about that? Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I remember that. Like, I know a lot of these are good in when you're demoing, but when it comes to practical use, right? It might not be that helpful, right? Or people might not be using it as much as they do.
Yep. Cool, Sidhu. Any final closing thoughts?
As we were discussing in the starting of the video, right? I felt I'm I have to maybe do a catch up game on all the things that are happening on the AI side nowadays. So it's moving so fast, and we have to understand so many of these things as we go. So I think, yeah, it's a good eye opener for me, so that I have to learn more things on the AI side. But this was also a reply back to anybody who was criticizing Google, is what I thought. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's true because they came back strong. They came back with multiple models with a clear focus on who their customers are. Hey, I'm focusing on developers, so please use these products. I'm making sure whatever they need is available so that they can build on it. They're also, it also felt like they're focused on enterprise, like be it their office suite or be it their, uh, they have been like calling that nuances to say, hey, enterprise customers can use and build secure models that is specific to their own data. So those are the things that stood out for me, like focus on developers and focus on enterprise so that the models can be used. Yep.
Yeah, and I think maybe once all of these features are launched, we have to do like a video trying these out, and telling people what stood out, and what is actually Google lagging at. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, good discussion. So thanks everybody. And if you actually want a video of us reviewing some of these products, please let us know in the comment section. And also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Everything Product. Thanks everybody.
Thank you.